Hey, Kate,
Yeah?
do we give legal advice on this podcast?
Oh gosh, no.
Hostile work environment.
Exactly.
Hey, an appropriate workplace topic.
Hostile work environment.
Shut up.
I'm the Human Resources Director, Little Miss Hostile Work Environment.
Hello, welcome to the Hostile Work Environment. We are a bi-weekly labor, employment, and HR podcast. My name is Mark Alifans. I am here, as always, with Kate Bischoff. Say hello, Kate.
Hello.
We are here for a special episode today. We're coming at you midweek, and we just thought, let's just take a moment. We're all talking Corona all the time. No, we're not going to do a non-Corona episode. That'll come out on Monday next week. But we thought, let's just shame some bad actors. Let's go out and find the worst of the worst, compile a list, and let all of you who aren't doing these things feel better about yourselves.
An homage to shitty employers.
Yes. So should we start off with the kind of big news from yesterday?
That sounds good. Yeah.
So for any of you who weren't paying close attention yesterday, a lot of news hit the fan related to an Amazon warehouse worker who got fired after he organized an employee walkout. So the basic gist of the story, just 2 hours after he organized a protest on Monday over fears of a coronavirus outbreak at one of their fulfillment centers, I think in the New York area, he was fired. So he says, we all know this is retaliation. There's no way around it. I took a huge stand, put my career on the line, and I don't regret it. I don't know how they even sleep at night for doing what they did to me.
The reason for his termination is really quite stellar. I mean, this is very cutesy lawyering.
It is. Mr. Smalls received multiple warnings for violating social distancing guidelines and putting the safety of others at risk. He was also found to have had close contact with a diagnosed associate with a confirmed case of COVID-19 and was asked to remain home with pay for 14 days, which is a measure we're taking at sites around the world. Despite that instruction to stay home with pay, he came on site on March 30th, further putting the teams at risk. This is unacceptable, and we have terminated his employment as a result of these multiple safety issues. What say you, Kate?
I say this
Above
is not
board?
great.
Not great.
Well, so let's take the two issues separately. Had he organized the protest, that would be a violation of the National Labor Relations Board because he is organizing a protest about the terms and conditions of employment, aka the safety of the workplace.
So, just to be clear, the termination would have been a violation.
Yes, the termination would have been
because he's engaging in protected, concerted activity under the National Labor Relations Act.
Yes. He got too close to folks, and so we fired him. That also is, is that close enough to the protest? How did they get so close to each other? That one is the confusing part for me. We told you to stay home because you've been exposed to COVID-19 and you didn't. I think that's a relatively good reason to fire somebody. Would be classic insubordination. So I think there's certainly a fact issue here.
Right. And it's interesting because the politicians have all come out saying we need to investigate this right away and are turning it into a really big deal. At the same time, I would be very interested as a casual observer to know and see the documentation that's been lined up. What was communicated to him? What was communicated to others in the same circumstance who may have been exposed to someone who had tested positive? Are they all being asked to stay home and they all did? Or were they singling him out in some way? I think that this could go both ways, but I think if I'm Amazon, maybe I'm worrying a little bit about the public face on it and how it's hitting publicity.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, so many of us are depending on Amazon. I have good friends who work for Amazon and they love working there. That said, this is a bad look. They have a huge target on their back because they're Amazon. So these kinds of questions are going to be huge publicity for them.
Totally
Negative.
agree. I say that as I sit here, tapping on my desk, and I'm waiting for my boom mic to come in so that you don't hear me tapping, and it's 3 weeks out because it's non-essential. I mean,
Right.
come on, Amazon.
Okay, Mark.
Okay, Mark. Yeah. All right. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Let's talk about Hobby Lobby,
Ugh.
a perennial favorite for the employment law crowd. They've
Ugh.
never, I mean, it's not like they've ever been in it before, right?
Oh, first of all, I don't have any hobbies really. I don't craft. I don't do any of that stuff. So I don't understand the attraction to the store in the first place. But then their history of being just so mean to people is just like stellar. And then this story takes it to a whole new level.
Right. So in this particular case, Hobby Lobby owner David Green had previously said that they were going to keep their stores open during the virus situation because a vision from God told him to.
Didn't the
Uh,
vision tell his wife this? Like, isn't she the one who gets touched by God?
the quote I see here is a vision from God told him and his wife
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
keep
Okay.
the chain open. Uh, but despite that vision, Uh, the Oklahoma-based business has closed its stores in that state and turned around to cut employee pay due to the outbreak, while also terminating at least 32 employees in their corporate art and creative department. A letter sent out Friday to the affected employees noted that the layoff is permanent and encouraged them to seek unemployment benefits. They were also told that a company representative will stop by homes to deliver personal belongings and company badges or equipment. Wow.
And then they still have stores open in Colorado. I mean, they're doing mass terminations and then keeping some stores open. It's all very confusing to me, but they're originally told we'll keep the stores open for because of God, and now everybody gets laid off.
Yeah, I should read this, and I think it bears out your understanding here. A message sent by him earlier in the week, David Green, the CEO, that is. In her quiet prayer time this past week, the Lord put on Barbara's heart 3 profound words to remind us that He's in control: guide, guard, and groom. We serve a God who will guide us through this storm, who will guard us as we travel to places never seen before, and who, as a result of this experience, will groom us to be better than we could have ever thought possible before now. While we do not know for certain what the future holds or how long this disruption will last, we can all rest knowing God is in control. And this isn't meant to be any sort of
No,
discussion
no,
on our
no.
part and around religion, but it seems like an interesting business decision and hook for the business decision to try to keep the stores open originally, and now kind of reversing yourself. And I thought there were a couple of really, harsh tweets that came out, not unjustified harsh tweets. So one of them says, so Hobby Lobby waits till yesterday to close, continually exposing employees and others because it's quote unquote in the hands of God. Today they fire people by email, no severance, no insurance. Apparently God doesn't want the Greens to use their billions to help their laborers.
Yeah, and that's what's so awful about it. I mean, I have some very good friends who are very religious and I love them. I don't want to disrespect their faith in any way. But Hobby Lobby has used their religion to do awful things to employees. And while they don't necessarily um, people who are very religious go work there in many cases, and so if you are of a minority faith you might not go work there because of their history, but they certainly are setting this up for a ton of religious discrimination cases going forward, not only for this behavior but for their whole history.
And they're on the record,
Yeah.
right? I mean, uh, another one says they closed employees who have become COVID-19 positive because of the dangerous decision to ignore CDC guidance should sue the company. Anyone in Oklahoma who can trace their COVID-19 positive exposure to Hobby Lobby employees should sue.
Okay, there's
And that
I
might
don't
be
think
going a bit far.
yeah, that could be going because we don't know, we're not going to be able to trace it that closely anymore because of the rate at which it has spread and how quickly. So we're not going to be able to trace it necessarily
Right.
back to the
There's no way.
particular, yeah,
But
scrapbooking
the
shelf in
sentiment,
aisle 7.
the sentiment is one that I identify with, which is that, how many more people may be exposed because they didn't take appropriate precautions.
Right. Yep. Agree.
All right, moving on. Here's another one that's hit this week. Hospitals tell doctors they'll be fired if they speak out about lack of gear. It's not just doctors. That's just the headline I read. It's doctors, it's nurses,
Nurses.
it's medical professionals generally who, I saw one, I tweeted it out, I think it was yesterday, of a nurse or a doctor in New York who got a Yankees poncho as PPE, as personal protective equipment. I
Love
mean,
it.
come
Come
on.
on, people. Yeah. Okay. So for the hospital administrators who are making the decision that we are going to terminate folks for speaking out, I want to take my right hand, because I'm stronger with my right hand, and I want to whap them up the backside of the head. And like, haven't we told you forever that people get to complain about the terms and conditions of employment? And certainly whether or not they have the appropriate protective gear to do their jobs without getting an infectious disease is the terms and conditions of employment. I mean, this is a blatant NLRB
Yeah.
claim, and this is not the action you want to be taking, particularly now. We need all of these people working. All of them.
Absolutely. And again, if I'm one of those health systems, I'm out there being public about the fact that we're trying. We're trying to get
Hmm.
resources from our state and from our federal government. It's nonsense. No, our professionals don't have the protection they need, and we're doing everything we can. And we encourage them to be out there and publicizing this, because it's not just us, right?
Yep.
It's your federal government, it's your state government. We need to figure out the right way to get this material to us, and every voice adds to that chorus. Not,
Hmm.
don't do it because it might embarrass us.
Yeah. No, no, no. No, no, no. I'm going to be embarrassed if I have to be a patient going to the hospital and somebody's dressed in a Yankee poncho. That's going to make me sad.
For
But
a bunch of reasons.
right, for like, I feel so bad. But
I'm a
yeah,
Mets fan. No,
I hate baseball, so that's okay too. But yeah, no, the voices should be trying to get the resources, not firing someone because they spoke out.
right. And I should say there are some producers of baseball uniforms that have converted to creating
The face mask.
actual masks that meet the appropriate standards, and they're still the patterns of the teams. So there are certain circumstances where that's absolutely okay, but like a regular old poncho, rain poncho from a Yankees game, that's not PPE, people.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
All right, moving on. How do you feel about lawyers behaving badly?
I am both embarrassed and tickled when that
That
happens.
sums it up well. Embarrassed and tickled. I think you may have just named our episode there. Uh, so I've got two of them here. Now these don't specifically relate to employment, but I just want to like totally just diss on our profession here for a moment. So first here I have a motion for a protective order. Defendant NCL out of the Bahamas filed an emergency motion for a protective order last night concerning a routine snafu over the date of a corporate representative deposition. So this is just a generic deposition of a corporate rep just to ask basic things about the corporation and the corporate structure.
A regular old 30B6.
30B6. United States District Judge Cecilia Altanega denied the motion because it failed to comply with the discovery procedures order, but she ordered that the corporate representative deposition would not take place next week. The order also explained that NCL need not provide a corporate representative until I decide the dispute. I'm reading out of the court's order here.
Okay.
Presumably, I'm not deciding. Mark is not deciding the dispute. The judge writing this order is. Presumably, the parties will reschedule the hearing if they still can't on their own resolve a routine deposition scheduling snafu. Nevertheless, I feel compelled to offer some observations in the let's keep things in perspective department. The
Oh, I
entire
like
world,
her.
I'm reading this in the voice I imagine, the entire freaking world is in the midst of a pandemic. Thousands of people worldwide have contracted the coronavirus, and there have been hundreds of virus-caused deaths in the United States. Millions of Americans have been ordered to remain in their homes. Millions more have lost their jobs in the past 2 weeks. The stock market has taken a brutal beating in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Many people are scared. Others are panicked. Everyone is unsure about the future. Cruises have been canceled, and all the major airlines have severely curtailed their flights. We are living in an unprecedented situation. Nevertheless, the lawyers in this case have been exchanging snippy emails over the past 2 weeks over the scheduling of a corporate representative deposition. Moreover, defense counsel certified that this routine discovery dust-up is so important that it merits emergency status. No, it doesn't.
It does not. Does not. No, thank you.
A spat over the specific day of a corporate representative deposition is hardly critical. It is in fact routine. If all the issues we are currently facing were to be organized on a ladder of importance, here's the money quote, a ladder of importance, this deposition scheduling dispute would not even reach the bottom rung of a 10-rung ladder.
Oh, that's a good judge. I don't know why she mentioned cruises, but I do like it doesn't even reach the bottom rung. Okay.
Right? So the deposition will not be taken next week. Life will go on, but the undersigned will be requiring counsel for both sides to appear for a hearing at some point, even if they work out the rescheduled date for the corporate deposition. That hearing will require the attorneys to explain their behavior in context of the far more important issues this court and the entire world is facing.
Ooh, that is a sign that if you continue this case, she is going to be pissed. That is a definite go settle this thing.
Right? Or at least figure out a date and do it over the phone or do it, leave me out of it.
Mm-hmm. Don't ever come to my courtroom over something stupid like this again. That is a good sign. Yep.
Right. And I got another one here. So this is in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. And
love Illinois. Yes.
Right?
Chicago.
I mean, it's no Florida, but
Yeah, but what happens in Illinois? Woo! They're good cases.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the case is Art Ask Agency plaintiff versus the individuals, corporations, limited liability companies, partnerships, and unincorporated associations identified on Schedule A here too. Defendants.
Is this a pro se case?
I don't think so. I don't know though.
Well, okay. So the reason I ask is when you don't have any specifics for who the defendants are, it's typically a person who is not an attorney bringing the lawsuit because they don't have enough detail.
My impression from the order is that it sounds like both sides have attorneys. So
quality attorneys, I'm sure.
Well, and this is my the case itself is amazing anyway.
Yay.
And I may have foreshadowed this in a tweet that I sent out yesterday. This case, this is from the order by the Honorable Stephen C. Seeger. This case involves counterfeit unicorn drawings.
Yes!
The complaint includes a few examples of products that allegedly infringe plaintiffs' trademarks, which offer, quote, striking designs and lifelike portrayals of fantasy subjects.
Lifelike unicorns. Awesome.
One example is a puzzle of an elf-like creature embracing the head of a unicorn on a beach.
Big hug on a beach.
Big hug. Elf and unicorn love forever.
That are not socially distant.
Well, I mean, presumably they drew this before the coronavirus. And who knows if it's even transmissible between elves and unicorns. Who knows?
Sure, I'm sure unicorns are immune. I think
probably, but it's really about the elf population that we need to be concerned. Another is a hand purse with a large purple heart, filled with the interlocking heads of two amorous-looking unicorns.
Oh.
So a purse with a heart and two unicorns making out, basically.
That's a hot seller.
It's totally. There are phone cases featuring elves and unicorns, and a unicorn running beneath a castle lit by a full moon. Meanwhile, the world is in the midst of a global pandemic. The president has declared a national emergency. The governor has issued a statewide health emergency. As things stand, the government has forced all restaurants and bars in Chicago to shut their doors, and the schools are closed too. The government has encouraged everyone to stay home, to keep infections to a minimum, and help contain the fast-developing public health emergency. Last week, However, I'm adding however, plaintiff filed a motion for a temporary restraining order against the defendants who are located abroad and requested a hearing. This court thought it was a bad time to hold a hearing on the motion, so the court moved the hearing by a few weeks to protect the health and safety of our community, including counsel and this court's staff. Waiting a few weeks seemed prudent. Plaintiff has not demonstrated that it will suffer an irreparable injury waiting a few weeks. At worst, defendants might sell a few more counterfeit products in the meantime. But plaintiff makes no showing about the anticipated loss of sales. One wonders if the fake fantasy products are experiencing brisk sales at the moment.
Well, we all want to get away right now, so
Right? Plaintiff wants
maybe.
to, sorry,
Maybe.
right?
No.
Plaintiff wants to force financial institutions to lock down accounts and require domain name registries to shut down websites, for example. Plaintiff requests an order forcing innocent third parties, such as Amazon, eBay, PayPal, Alibaba, Western Union, plus social media platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, plus internet search engines such as Google, Bing, and Yahoo, among others, to spring into action within 2 or 3 days.
Oh, Bing will be able to do that fast because no one uses it.
Right. Poor Bing. Either the order would be a nullity, or it would distract people who may have bigger problems on their hands right now. In response, plaintiff, Art Ask Agency, and its counsel, so they are represented,
Okay.
filed a motion for reconsideration. They asked this court to rethink the scheduling order. They want a hearing this week, telephonically, if need be. Plaintiff recognizes that the community is in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic, but plaintiff argues that it will suffer an irreparable injury if this court does not hold a hearing this week and immediately put a stop to the infringing unicorns and the knockoff elves. To top it off, plaintiff noticed the motion for a hearing on March 19, 2020, a day that has already been blocked off on the court's calendar, as revealed on its webpage, for several weeks. If there's ever a time when emergency motions should be limited to genuine emergencies, now's the time. 30 minutes ago, though, this court learned that plaintiff filed yet another emergency motion. They teed it up in front of the designated emergency judge and thus consumed the attention of the chief judge. The filing calls to mind the sage words of Elihu Root. About half of the practice of a decent lawyer is telling would-be clients that they are damned fools and should stop.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds like a client control problem.
Right? The world is facing a real emergency. Plaintiff is not. The motion to reconsider the scheduling order is denied.
Properly so. Definitely properly so. Again, don't make a judge angry. Should be a lesson here. And if you do make a judge angry, you can't turn and point to your client and say it was the client's fault. You have to take the brunt of that as well. And you are likely to appear in front of that judge again. Don't be a dingbat.
Right? You heard it here. Don't be a dingbat. All right. All right. I'm going to get into some other examples of companies now. These are just from all over the place.
Sweet.
So this is one that got a lot of play on Twitter, and I've got a bunch of the tweets here in front of me. Are you familiar with the bird ride debacle?
Yes. The Zoom recording. Yes.
Alleged Zoom recording.
Oh, okay.
So someone named Julia Black tweets, "My friend just got laid off along with 400 other employees by dialing into a pre-recorded Zoom message. Her manager never even called to say goodbye. The virus may be out of your control, but how humanely you handle it is not." I thought it was a great tweet. A little bit
Absolutely.
of hearsay there because she wasn't involved with it, but she just heard from a friend.
Right. I think our friend Suzanne wrote about this. The real evil HR lady.
I think she did, yes.
Yeah, and saying that it's totally okay to use Zoom at this point in time, but let's make it an actual live conversation and let's
Sure.
not do it in a huge group. Let's have individual conversations with people, letting them know. Because there's nothing wrong necessarily with putting people on furlough or on layoff at this point in time. In fact, in many cases, that's the right thing to be doing. But
Right.
the fact that you are doing it in a recorded call to 400 people all at the same time,
It's cold.
yeah.
But let's read on. So she then continues, Julia that is, Next tweet says, okay, have permission to reveal it was at Bird Ride with a pre-recorded message, all caps, fuming. But then the
Mm-hmm.
next day, well, actually, let's skip forward or skip back. Sorry. So the same day, Bird Ride responds, the Twitter account for Bird Ride, with a 5-tweet storm, so to speak. Okay. So tweet 1, layoffs are never easy or comfortable to do, and COVID-19 has impacted the way they are done in at least the near term.
Yeah.
Bird, I guess they call themselves Bird. Bird had to make the difficult decision to eliminate 30% of its staff. Due to
Okay.
CDC, WHO, and a number of government mandates, Bird employees are currently all working from home, and the impacted individuals received the news on a web-based call. We purposefully and intentionally did not have any video on to protect privacy as we delivered the news live to individuals. A live speaker delivered the news over the web-based call, and a slide was projected outlining additional information, including 4 weeks of pay, 3 months of medical coverage, and an extended time frame to exercise options. Each individual then received a call or email from Bird's talent team as a follow-up. We are eternally grateful to the impacted individuals and wish that the entire situation could have been avoided.
Okay.
Okay.
So how they described how it went down, that I think that's fine.
Sounds pretty okay.
Yeah, it sounds pretty okay. And especially since they're, providing 3 months of health insurance. I think that's the definite thumbs up, Bird. But
Right.
they could have handled it even better. They could have
Right.
had the Zoom calls be from managers to employees, etc., and on that scale, right?
But if that's true, they're not on our list. If what I just read, if what they said is true, they're probably not on our list. But there's
No.
more here. So
Yay.
Julia follows up the next day with update. Bird has stated that the call was not pre-recorded. Many who were on the call have contacted me to say it sounded robotic, and that if it was a live reading of a script, it was easily mistaken for a recording. That was the general impression, which is significant. I was not on the
Mhm.
call myself, so I can't say definitively one way or another. I can say that if anything, I've only learned additional disturbing information about the handling of this whole situation since tweeting about it. I had no idea this would get so much attention, but the fact that it is hitting such a nerve shows me that this is indicative of a much wider trend. I hope that companies making difficult decisions right now will think hard about how to treat employees with kindness and respect.
Mhm.
But then there's another couple of tweets. And these are from someone, Twitter user gogo_usagi, named Jesse Perlow. My partner was in these layoffs. Leadership had their executive assistant deliver the news through tears. Guess they were too busy leaking their memo to TechCrunch to do it themselves, and impacted folks learned about their severance from the TechCrunch article, not from the company. So at Bird Ride can go F themselves for acting like people are mad the layoffs were done over Zoom. Zoom wasn't the problem. Their awful treatment of the people they laid off was. Layoffs, quote, are never easy or comfortable to do, from their tweet, but at least
Mhm.
they should be effing humane.
Oh, the
Adding
poor
this,
assistant. Oh.
Bird Ride laid 400 plus people off. The Zoom where they laid them off was capped at 250. So imagine being one of the 150 plus who had to find out afterwards. Oh, and leadership was silently on the call, taking spots from people who were actually being laid off. They're back on our list.
Yeah, definite shit list. Yep. Ooh, not great. Not great. And that
Not great.
poor assistant.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine, like, I'm the assistant to an executive and I'm the one who they're like, oh no,
Right.
we don't want to do that. No.
No. I mean, I don't
Take
mind letting
responsibility. No.
right. I don't mind letting people go because I've done it enough.
Yeah.
It can be really
Curse of the
hard.
employment lawyer, right?
Right. I've done it enough, but it particularly in this kind of situation, people are going to understand if you approach them with humanity and say,
Of
"Ooh,
course.
yeah." So that poor assistant, I want to give her a appropriate physical distance hug. So,
Virtual hugs
hmm
to you, assistant. All right, here's an interesting one. This came from Reddit, where I tend to lurk, and actually a listener sent this to me. Um, and this is in the r/legal advice
Yes.
subreddit, which is always a great place to hang out.
Treasure trove.
I love its r/legal advice, but there is no legal advice actually given.
Right.
Disclaimers abound.
Mm-hmm.
Got laid off due to corona. Boss called me back a week later to tell me he wants me part-time for way less money and he'll contest unemployment if I say no. Yeah, so the details
Dick.
here are amazing. This is happening in the great state of Tennessee. So a couple of weeks ago, my boss laid me off. I was a salaried estimator, project manager, IT specialist for a concrete company. I got the unemployment paperwork into the state and approved, and got the notification that they were sending it to my boss as per usual. Less than a week later, my boss called me back to let me know that he needed me back to do a little bit of project management work for him here and there, less than 10 hours a week spread out over several days. And he was going to have me do estimates on a commission basis in the meantime. It was previously part of my salaried work. Now, because I have to drive anywhere between 45 minutes to 4 hours to get to a job or estimate site, and my drive time is unpaid, this means that I will be spending almost all of my time working for almost nothing. And half the job I was previously paid for will now only pay if I make a sale. I told him that this offer was bullshit. I never signed any paperwork changing my job duties, and he'd literally just laid me off. And he told me that he had worked for me and hadn't done the unemployment paperwork. And, quote, he wasn't going to let me just sit back and collect unemployment and not work. He mentioned it would be easy to contest it as there was no official paperwork made up yet. I didn't know this as he'd laid me off over the phone and assumed any necessary paperwork would reach me by mail or would already be
Mm.
done. And he was considering doing so because there was some kind of small business loan they're offering now for people who don't lay off their staff, and he wanted to apply for that. If I agree to this, I'm basically going to be working a 40 to 50 hour a week for $200, whereas I was previously making $1,300, which is still incredibly small for a project management position. And in all
Mm-hmm.
honesty, I feel like I'm way better off spending that 40 hours revamping my resume, brushing up on some skills, or taking a class, and applying for better jobs, even if I probably won't be getting one until all this COVID-19 stuff blows over. Personally, I feel like I've somehow been blackmailed into slave labor, but there's no way I'm going to be able to find another job right now. And if he contests my unemployment, I'm royally screwed. Is this legal? Like, what the hell kind of recourse do I have here?
Okay, so I'm going to tackle this in a couple of different ways. One, he's going to get unemployment if his layoff had to do with COVID-19. And while in most states, and I think even Tennessee, they're under a shelter in place, but construction is still an essential business, so their work still could be available. The actual employer, in normal situations, could be taxed higher because their experience rating would be up if this was a layoff and he got unemployment. So if the owner is trying to avoid that increased tax amount for unemployment, this is like that might be what his motivation is for giving him the quote unquote alleged slave behavior. But if another job is offered to you and it has a worse commute, it has lower wages, all of those things, those are perfectly fine reasons to say no and still collect unemployment.
Yeah,
So I would not take the job and go with the unemployment. I don't think unemployment is going to say no,
I
even if
don't
he
think so
contests it.
either. And in fact, some Tennessee specific advice came in later in the comments, and I haven't checked to verify any of this. So these are comments on the internet. Take them for what they're worth. But uh, uh, I can't pick a name responds. Going from another angle, under Tennessee unemployment rules, you are not required to accept any job for the first 13 weeks unless it pays 100% of your most recent wages.
Yep.
Thus, this job wouldn't disqualify you from unemployment due to you rejecting the job, right?
Yep.
Which makes sense. And
Hmm.
I'd also say, based on the kind of work it sounds like he does, like, yeah, continue to get your unemployment and say, look, you fired me. I'm not working there anymore. But if you want to hire me back on a contract basis, I'm happy to do that. Here's my hourly rate.
Yep. That's one way to go.
All right. How are we doing on time? I'm going to move along here a little bit.
Okay.
Just know that there's more than what I'm sharing because there's
Oh, I'm
just
sure.
that much. All right, we're going to move into a section here. We're going to do rapid fire single tweets that are great tweets. Typical Portland fan, so a local, says, I have a coworker who keeps saying we're family and hugging folks at work. So
Oh.
much for social distancing. Thankfully, she doesn't particularly like me, so I'm not affected until somebody gets sick and we all have to work harder.
Okay, first of all, I have never liked the idea that at my job we are just like family. We treat everybody like family because families treat each other horribly. So
Right?
why would we want to be like family? Um, but that apart, like no hugging right now. No,
Right.
none.
And if you see that, HR,
Yeah, shame them.
right? And this was long ago enough. Maybe they hadn't quite set out, the governor's order maybe hadn't had enough time to sink in yet, so,
Yeah.
but still, like it sounds like this individual is saying, oh, we're all in this together and we're family. So it's okay if I just ignore these rules, even though I have no idea who you've been in contact with.
Or been to Hobby Lobby in aisle 9 and got COVID there.
Yeah. So at Dumbfish Bish says,
Okay.
well, it's like funny because they all have the at and then they have the actual name, right? So this is at Dumbfish Bish, and the name is actually Dumb Shark Idiot.
Awesome.
My coworker says that the planes that fly overhead are changing the weather with chemtrails and releasing COVID-19 on the populace as a means to curb overpopulation and bring about the Antichrist. I fucking hate these people.
That's awesome. I live near the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, and the amount of planes has dropped off precipitously, but I'm pretty confident they're not dropping COVID. So,
I hope not. But chemtrails, though, that's a thing. All right. And I'm sure now I'm going to get like hate messages like, no, chemtrails are really a thing. Spare yourself.
resist the temptation.
At Salt Foam says, it took my coworker to test positive for COVID-19 for my idiot boss to finally shut our workplace down temporarily. At MK Secretly Amazing says, whoever my boss is, they are an idiot. I work at an escape room, a place where random people spend $30 to try and be smart and touch everything before they leave. I got called in tomorrow. If I get the COVID, I'm taking the business down with me. But also, how do you not know who your
No.
boss is?
Yeah, that's true. But don't go to escape room. And for the record, I have not left my house today, and I have washed my hands, so I can't touch my face. But
For those of you watching
no.
on video.
Yeah, no.
No,
That escape room should have been closed. And who was still going?
right? Well,
Mm-mm.
we're bored. We need something to do. At Madeline Pine says, my boss just sent out a long email saying he's confident we can keep the workplace safe and clean, and he's not letting us work from home. I have to laugh because it's so dumb. We work at computers all day.
Okay.
At Amusement Shark says, if I die from COVID-19 because my workplace is still open, at least I got to spend my final days in blue-collar hell listening to idiots bitch about Justin Trudeau. So a little Canadian perspective.
Oh, that's awesome.
At Hoodie Pains says, idiot things you shouldn't do. Exhibit COVID symptoms for 2 weeks, not get a test, then come to work in an N95 as a protest to the city to give you more sick pay because you, quote, don't want to continue to use up vacation time instead. F you. And then he continues, and to
No.
my other coworker, fuck you for thinking social distancing means that I can invite people over the weekend because they've also been social distancing during the week. It's the complete opposite of what social distancing means.
Yeah, it's not 5 days on, 2 days off social
Right.
distancing.
Right.
It's all week, 24/7. Wow.
V says, When your coworker asked you tips on how to get laid on Tinder, I was like, what? I mean, social distancing, man.
Oh, I like the comments that it's dating right now is like dating in the 1950s. Like you had to have lots of conversations before
Hmm.
you did anything physical because social distancing. Yeah, we shouldn't be on Tinder asking how to get laid right now because assume everyone is COVID. Wow, these are beauties, Mark.
I know, it's great, right? Alex the coffee boy says, in regards to social distancing, my coworker said either 6 feet apart or 6 feet under. And honestly, I don't know if I should take that as a threat.
I wouldn't take that as a threat. I
No,
think it's
but it's funny.
yeah, it's a little funny.
And to round out our tweet storm, Shay Lowe says, so we got a new employee in my department, and she has to sit right next to me so I can train her. And a coworker of mine messaged me saying, how's that social distancing going for you?
Yeah, onboarding right now has got to be a real challenge. But woo, those are beauties. Lots on the shit list.
Yeah, right. And that was just 15 minutes of me searching Twitter. So
Didn't take long.
didn't
Yeah,
take long to find.
yeah, I've got a friend who sent me one where the dentist is still requiring the hygienist to come in to do dental work. Uh,
But
like I'm breathing on you if I'm the patient, and your hands are in my mouth where my COVID is. Like, no, thank
all of the dental offices I'm aware of are only working emergencies right now.
Yeah, I feel bad. My oldest is supposed to be in braces for 18 months, but this just extends it out that
Oh
much
no.
longer, right? Because he can't get it tightened. He
Oh,
can't do all those things. So he's going to be in braces a little bit longer. He'll
oops.
survive. He'll be fine.
Yep,
But
he'll live.
still, mhm,
Yeah.
he'll live.
All right. So I thought with all of this wonderful negativity that we've brought so far today, maybe we could round this out with two employers that seem to be doing it right. And there's
Yay. Okay.
and by only including two, these are two examples. I know that there are tons and tons and lots of stories I've seen, but these are two that stood out to me in watching this week. One comes from our friend John Hyman. Uh,
Okay.
uh, this is out of Cleveland. Giant Eagle, which I think is a grocery chain, to give $10 million in bonus pay to employees working during coronavirus.
That's wonderful
So that's
because
fantastic.
they are saving us, the grocery store workers.
Right, so employees in Giant Eagle, Market District Giant Eagle Pharmacy, and GetGo gas stations, as well as those working in the warehouse, will be eligible for this $10 million in bonus pay. It starts immediately and is retroactive back to the mid-March. It currently it runs through May 2nd, but we'll reevaluate again based on the needs of the community. The grocery store giant is always finding ways to support their employees and work to keep everyone safe, healthy, and fed. Uh, we cannot thank our employees enough, President and CEO Laura Shapara-Carrot said in a statement. They are our heroes.
They are
So that's fantastic.
awesome.
And one last one. This one really, I love this one. Are you familiar with Dan Price and the company Gravity? They
No.
made big news about 5 years ago. So he's the CEO, Seattle-based company who decided to pay all of his employees
Oh
$70,000.
yeah, and including himself. Yeah, and
Including himself. Now he has
he
others who make more than that, but
right.
minimum salary at the company is $70,000, and he decided to pay himself the minimum.
Yep. And he's huge dividends since then, right?
Right. And so great leadership,
Yep.
great example of leadership. So they're back in the news. So
Okay.
they run a payment processing company for small businesses, and this is hugely impacting their clients, which means it's hugely impacting them.
Mhm.
So looking at the numbers, they figured out that in order to stay open, they would have to lay off 40 employees out of their 210.
Wow. Okay.
So uh, I'm just trying to scan through the article here. Across all of our merchants, there's a 55% drop in revenue over the last month. At the current rate, Price said the company would be out of business within 4 to 6 months.
Mm.
So on March 19th, he called a company-wide meeting to let employees know the state of the business and solicit creative strategies for navigating the next few months. He and Gravity COO Tammy Kroll scheduled 40-hour-long meetings with small groups of employees to check in and gather ideas. We put all our
Oh,
cards on the table, Price says, and we listened. First, employees agreed that they wanted to avoid raising fees for Gravity's customers, which Price says are already suffering losses between 40 and 80% in revenue. Together, the team settled on an unconventional strategy. Each person was given a form that allowed them to privately express how much, if anything, they could sacrifice financially in terms of a pay cut.
oh,
6 people said they would be willing to give up their entire salary for several months, if necessary, if it meant there'd be no layoffs. 24 said they would give up half their paycheck. And even those who had significant financial obligations said they would be willing to shave off a small percentage of their salary. Every single person in the company took a voluntary cut of some kind. That gets me like super choked up. Although leadership then decided nobody's cut could be more than 50%.
yeah.
Every member of the management team took large pay cuts. Overall, the voluntary cuts amounted to a 20% decrease in salary expenses, which Price says gives the company a runway of 9 to 12 months, and no employees were laid off.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Crazy good, right?
Yep, crazy
Talk
good.
about creative, transparent
Mm-hmm.
leadership. It's just right. And you go research this company, like there's all sorts of stuff out there for them with pay equity and how
Mm-hmm.
they don't have any pay equity issues because everybody's salary is public.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's making 70,000 anyway. I just think there's a lot to be learned from how they run their company,
Absolutely. Makes me want to be a customer. So,
right?
hmm
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, thank you for ending on a positive note,
Right.
Mark.
You are very welcome. Um, I think so. We've been going for about 45 minutes. I think we will call our special episode to an end there. Before we go, though, can you let the people know where to find you?
So right
Not
now,
your
the
home
best.
address, not your home
Yeah.
address, but other kinds of find you.
Uh,
Socially distant finding you.
yes. So I would go to thrivelawconsulting.com, all one word. I've been putting up a lot of information related to COVID, including some webinar recordings there. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn or the Twitters because I love the Twitters. So
All right. And you can
you?
find, oh, well, yeah, you can find us on Twitter at HWE Podcast for the podcast. I'm at Salad Pants. There is actually technically an alifanslaw.com that is live now, but there's no content and my name is spelled wrong. So I don't know. You can all go to it, but don't send me nasty grams because, I
No.
don't know how to spell my own name. So, but maybe even by tomorrow when this comes out, there will be some additions and changes to it. But just getting it live was the first step. And then,
Yep.
getting something basic up there, hopefully before the end of the week is my next step. So.
Good goal. Good goal.
All right. We will be back on Monday with a regular episode continuing our series on the cases that made employment law what it is today.
Awesome. And COVID free.
COVID free. No COVID. COVID free stuff. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.